I think the most important thing that we, all of us, need to understand is this is the development of our soul, and this is an aspect of us as who we are. It's an aspect of our soul, and it's not so much of, how do I develop my clairs? How do I develop my clairvoyance or my clairsentience? It's about how do I touch and awaken that aspect of my soul.
Welcome to the Spirits Beside Us podcast. I'm your host, Chris Lippincott. I'm an ex-Wall Street analyst turned international medium, spiritual teacher, and best-selling author. Each week we'll dive into the fascinating and uplifting arena of the non-physical world to help you deepen your understanding and spiritual connection to the unseen realm. We'll also share a behind-the-scenes look with others who've done the same and speak with experts in the field about their experiences. Pull up a seat and let's dive into these perspective-changing conversations. Welcome, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Spirits Beside Us. I am so thrilled to again have a wonderful guest. Today's guest is somebody who's near and dear to my heart, somebody I've been tracking for a number of years, who's certainly somebody I've followed in my experiences, and she is so wonderful. Her name, if you don't already recognize her face, is Kay Reynolds. She's a psychic medium. She's a #1 best-selling author, and she's a spiritual mentor. She's such a great medium because she's trained at the prestigious Arthur Findlay College in Stansted, England, under the one and only Mavis Patillo, who, if I remember right, used to practice for about 50 years. So she's definitely the longest standing tutor. Unfortunately, she's no longer with us, but she's still here, around us all the time. And in Kay's book called The Evidential Medium, she shares her entire personal mediumship journey, along with practical exercises that readers can unlock to kind of help them unlock that ancient tool of mediumship that we all have. It's really held deep within the soul, and Kay really kind of unravels that, which is wonderful. And she's written also a couple of articles that were picked up by Times magazine, and they were called Dying with Grace and Becoming a Professional Medium, which is just really a lot of what her book covers. She's also been taking her mediumship around the globe, and she's just been indicating that she's been around the globe recently. She's been working at churches, theaters, and a lot of different halls as teachers of mediumship, and definitely as a public speaker. So she takes herself around the world. So with all that fanfare, Kay, I welcome you. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
Well, yeah. I'm so glad. I'm so glad you're here. It's wonderful. Love catching up with you. One of the things that's always fascinated me is, how you went from your childhood to, your current state as such a well-known teaching medium. What was your childhood like? Was it like the run-of-the-mill childhood, or were you somebody who knew something was happening? What was your background like?
No, I didn't. I really didn't know anything was happening. I just thought, this is me. I never really put two and two together until I was much older. But my first experience of seeing a spirit person would have been around 5 or 6, and just saw an indigenous man from North America in my bedroom. Watching me play with my Barbie.
Did he know what Barbie looked like? He was, oh, that's a Barbie.
That's a Barbie. I was just doing what most 5-6-year-old little girls do, and just saw him just manifest right there in front of me, as plain as day, and
wow.
Had this connection with him that I can't really explain, other than when I looked into his eyes, I just knew immediately that I was safe with him, and that he loved me, and that everything was okay. And he sat and and watched me play for a while.
Hmm.
And then he just vanished.
Wow.
Yeah, that was my first experience.
That's a pretty profound experience. I would think most children would not really be quite sure what's happening. Did you think, am I making this up? Was your skeptical side of your mind? Although at 5 or 6, we don't really have much of a skeptical mind at that age. But was there a part of you that was questioning, what am I seeing here?
You know, I don't remember I don't remember doing that at all. What I remember, and this is the part that has just really stuck with me, is that when our eyes kind of locked with each other, I knew that I knew him. I knew that I was safe with him.
Okay.
And I knew that there was nothing to fear. And so I just had this knowing that this was okay, and I accepted it. And it's been that way my whole life, honestly. That was the beginning. It set the stage. And so all through childhood, any kind of experience in that way, I always just accepted it, that this is it. This is the way it is, and it's nothing to be concerned about.
Oh, okay. Did you take it to your parents, or was it more of sort of a personal adventure where you didn't really share it with your parents?
I didn't say anything. I finally, when I was about 12 or 13, said something to my mom, and only because spirit communicates through dreams a lot with me, especially when I was a child. And I'd have these people come to me telling me to tell her things. I didn't know who they were. They were family members that she knew, but I had never met. And I would wake up in the morning with that knowing again that I had to go tell my mom something. And I'd just get up and go straight to her and say, this lady told me to tell you this. And my mom, she was so wonderful. She always understood the message. And when I was about 12, I asked her, why do they keep doing this? Why do they keep coming to me? I don't even know who they are. This is so weird. Why is this happening? And she said to me, she said, God needs messengers on earth, and he chose you.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's
and
great.
I grew up in a Christian home, and so that felt right to me, and it soothed my soul, and it soothed my curiosity, and I accepted it. And
Great.
I thought, okay, I can do that.
That's fantastic. So it really sounds like you had a supportive background, a supportive family background that really helped you bring it within and like you said, accept what you were experiencing. Because there's so many people out there in their childhood may have experienced something, but their families often tend to push it away because they're not aware of it.
Yeah.
Or
Absolutely.
they're confused about it, or that's against what they grew up with.
Yeah, and she said that, and it, I accepted it, and it made sense to me. Growing up, I always knew that I had people behind me, that no one else knew or saw. I always knew that, and I always knew they were with me. And in my mind, as growing up in a Christian home, I just rationalized, oh, they're angels. They're just with me, and they're following me, kind of thing.
Okay.
And I obviously, once I got older and became more exposed to psychics and mediums, I started putting two and two together. They're not angels.
Now I know who they are.
Spirit people.
Well, yeah, they're hanging around.
So,
Okay.
yes, it was nice that I, as I now look back on what my mom said to me, I realized how profound that was for me, because I know so many kids, their parents will push them away and squash it,
Yeah.
but my mom didn't.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's I think that's been my whole concept has been something that when people think it's DNA, it's less DNA is more as opposed to culture or family, where it's like, oh, okay, I can accept it, I can talk about it. This is something that I can work with.
Right.
That I think is how it sort of goes through the generations. And as opposed to somebody said, well, my grandma, was into spirituality. Well, so am I. It's the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great.
But I grew up in a home that our faith would not have accepted it.
Ah, right. That's true. That's true.
So for my mom to say that, it was just amazing. It was like, wow, because as a child I accepted it, but as an adult, when I put two and two together, it was like, wait a minute, our faith would not have accepted this.
That's
but
right.
my mom had the wisdom to say it to me in that way, so it just it made all the difference.
That's great.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you had mentioned that you had certain either encounters or you became exposed to psychics and mediums as you got older. How did you become exposed, or what was your first exposure like when you were starting to encounter mediums and psychics?
Actually, I never heard the word psychic or medium until I was an adult.
Ah.
And I was on Oprah Winfrey, of all things. She had Doreen Virtue. Go way back.
Yeah,
she
way
had
back.
Doreen Virtue on.
The angel communicator, if I remember right.
Yeah. And so I was watching it, and as Doreen was talking about what she does and what she experiences, I was like, oh my God, that's what I do. And that was really my first introduction of, oh my goodness, could it be that I can do that and I'm like her?
Ooh, okay.
But of course, I was in denial and was thinking to myself, it couldn't possibly be me. Only people on TV can do this kind of stuff.
Right.
I'm just me, little old me. It can't be me.
No. I'm not good enough. I'm not somebody from the Hindu Kush. I can't do this.
It's not me. It's all, it can't be me. But as you know, if you have this ability, it doesn't just go away.
Right.
It only grows. It only becomes stronger, and so you eventually get to this point where you can't really ignore it anymore.
Mm-hmm. So what was it that got you to the point where you're saying to yourself, this is so strong that I've got to follow this. I've got to learn about this. I've got to become more involved with this. What was it that really kind of pushed you to follow the mediumship path? Certainly not for everyone.
Oh, yeah. I would probably, when I was living in Germany and I had gotten a medical transfer to England, and my father, of all people, who would have never accepted this in life, was communicating with me from the spirit world.
Oh.
And started pushing me, once I made it to England, started pushing me to explore this and do something with it. And bless his heart, I put him through the ringer. I made him prove to me in so many different ways that I was really communicating with him. And it wasn't in my imagination, but I would give him the credit. He's the one that just kept with me and saying, you've got to pursue this. You've got to pursue this. And so that's what I did. I followed his lead.
Wow, that's great. Was there any one point in your life or any experience in your life that finally kind of threw you over the edge that really kind of said, I really got to go do this?
Yeah.
Your father's one thing. Was there any one particular event that said, okay, this is it?
Well, I do. It does have to do with my dad. I was driving home from work one day, and I lived in the part of England that they call the Fens, which is flat land. It's farmland, and so there's no traffic, tractors. That's the traffic.
That's about it. It's about as fast as you're going to
Yeah.
go.
And I was having this conversation with my dad in my mind, having this conversation with him as I was driving along, and I said, "All right, Dad, if this is what you think I really need to do, I need you to prove to me that I really am speaking to you, and this is not just me imagining things." And about that time, I looked up, and there was a car coming forward. And as he got closer to me, I noticed on the license tag, it had the letters KK. Well, that's what my dad called me.
Oh, wow.
And I just, being myself, and I was joking around, said, "Oh yeah, that's good, Dad. That's not going to be good enough. You're going to have to give me something else." And again, another car came, and the letters on that car were LD. That is my dad's name.
Oh, my. Wow.
And I just went, "Okay, you have my attention." And
Great.
that was the turning point for me. It was, all right, you've got my attention now.
Wow. Those are two really powerful signs.
Yeah.
That's not coincidence. You can't make that up.
You can't make that up.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was in the middle of nowhere,
Yeah.
just surrounded by fields. And so I was like, "Okay, you've got me.
Yeah.
Just
and
lead me to where I need to be. I'll follow." And he did.
then he gave you more communications after that, kind of.
He gave me more communication. Yeah, and actually doors just started, how opportunities just start landing in your lap. And there was a circle that I'd never heard of, never even knew what a circle was, but was led to that. And joined that circle. And then I found the Arthur Findlay College. And it took off. I mean, it was just like a snowball rolling at that point. Just
So
one
were
thing after another.
these like the AFC, the Arthur Findlay College? Was that something that also fell in your lap? Like sort of like you somehow became aware of it. I mean, that's the other thing. It's like you weren't looking for it. How did you become aware of the Arthur Findlay College?
It literally just landed in my lap. Literally. I mean, I was just, minding my own business on the computer, and it came across the screen. And I was like, "What is this?" And just started, looking at it. And of course, as many of us do, I had that doubt. And when I looked into it, and I was all over that website looking at it going, "Well, that's not for me," because I just talked to my dad. It can't be. I'm not. I wouldn't work there. I'm not good enough to do that.
Right.
So,
I'm not good enough.
So I had all that internal dialogue going on there.
Right.
But no, he pushed me.
Wow.
So-
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. And luckily for me, I only lived about an hour at the most
Oh.
from the Arthur Findlay College, so I could drive there and easily. So,
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So you found AFC and you began to experience it. So what were your experiences like at the Arthur Findlay College? I mean, did they have you go through certain exercises? You ran across Mavis, probably other tutors as well. So how were they having you develop your mediumship, unfold your mediumship? What happened when you were there?
Yeah. Well, I met Mavis through Tony Stockwell.
Oh, right.
I
Okay.
had
Sure.
before I ever went to the college, I had signed up for a 1 week class in Wells, and I ended up in Tony Stockwell's class, and he talked about Mavis quite a bit. And so that's how I learned about Mavis, and I ended up taking a weekend course with Tony, and Mavis was a tutor, and he put me with Mavis. So that's how I ended up with Mavis.
Oh, all right. I see.
Yeah, and then from there, I started to get my confidence up enough to where, okay, maybe I could go to the college, and that's when I started going to the college. But yeah, through
Interesting.
Mavis, I learned about Paul Jacobs, and Paul Jacobs had courses going on at the college, so I just started signing up for them.
Wow. It's like, once the door opened, you couldn't close it. It's like all of a
More
sudden,
doors.
more doors. You had to keep on
More
doing
doors.
more. Exactly. And then
Yeah.
as you're, working with them, practicing with them, learning with them, like you said, your confidence is rising. And uh, from my experience, I always felt that it was like, the more your experience, or rather, the more your confidence rises, the more you embrace it. Was that something that you experienced? That the more confidence you had, the more you're like, yes, I can do this, and I'll allow what's coming to me.
Yeah, I would say yes. And there's something about the college when you walk in those doors. It just the energy of that place embraces you. And I remember when I walked into the Great Hall, I just knew that I was home.
Oh, interesting.
It was this feeling of I'm here. This is my home.
That's where I'm
I
supposed to
belong
be.
here. And it was getting that the nerve or the confidence to just step into the college and take that first course. But once I did that, I knew there was no going back. But and I have a bit of a stubborn streak in me, and I was so determined that because at this point I knew it. I knew that this is what I was supposed to do. I knew that this was a part of my soul's destiny, I guess you could say, or soul's path. And I just knew that I had to do something.
Right.
I had to stay with it no matter how tough it could be, because it can be tough.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah, definitely. It's you
Yeah.
got your ups and downs. Maybe for those people who haven't experienced or seen the Arthur Findlay College, maybe you can describe it, because I've always tried to describe it as sort of like the Hogwarts for adults. Maybe you can maybe you can give it a better description.
Well, it is kind of like the Hogwarts. I sometimes would call it that myself, but it's an amazing place. I'm going in July. I
Oh,
can't wait to get
oh
back
gosh,
there.
I'm jealous.
I can't wait. It's a warm and welcoming place for anybody who's on this journey to go and be with like-minded individuals and be with, some of the best tutors in the world. So it's hard to put it into words what it's like energetically. You've come home. You know that this is what your soul needs. It's great nourishment for the soul. So it's gosh, it's hard to say. There's so
I
many
see.
wonderful things
It's
about.
tough.
There's so many. Anybody on this path, I strongly would say go. If you ever have the opportunity, just go. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's just it's not only the the ability of the tutors, the breadth of the tutors, the breadth of the course, but it's also, to your point, the energy that's been housed there for several hundred years, the grounds, the buildings, the interior. It's just, it's incredible. And you're in a different world.
It is. It is incredible. It really is. And there's so much history there. And you know, my mentor used to say, that we're standing on the backs of the greats, and many of those greats were a part of that college.
Right.
They were the ones that helped to found that college. They did all that scientific research. They did all of that. There's so much history there. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's amazing. It is true. So when you're, conducting a reading, I always love to hear different people's explanation, how they feel, what it feels like for them when they're conducting a reading, when they're connecting with spirit. How do you feel? What is it like for you? What's your experience like when you're connecting with spirit and relaying their information as they work through you? Maybe you can help somebody step in your shoes.
Oh gosh. Well, it's evolved over time. It's evolved, but for me, it's a knowing. It's just a knowing that I've got somebody here with me. And I don't really know how to explain it other than that. I don't necessarily feel any kind of sensations or anything. I did. Sometimes I do. Even still, sometimes I do. But for the most part, it's just this knowing. I set that intentions that I'm ready to connect with whoever is here with me. And then I just get a knowing. I've got a man stepping forward. I've also got a lady here, and I've got others here, but I've got a man that wants to come forward first. And the information just comes in. I work mostly through feeling and through knowing, and then images start to drop in as well. So I'm open. However they want to give me that information, however they want to send it to me, it doesn't matter. It just comes.
You're the relay station, you're the conduit, and however they're going to give you the information, that's how they're going to give it to you, because you give what you get. That's
right. It's that I'm just here to relay whatever it is that they want to relay. And so it's just, come on in. Nice to meet you. Let's go.
For somebody who might be interested in learning mediumship, or maybe they're on the path perhaps to learning mediumship already, but they're just getting started out, what would you say might be one of the more important things they need to consider as they grow in this path? Is it allowing and trusting, or is there something else? What would you say?
I think the most important thing that we, all of us, need to understand is this is the development of our soul, and this is an aspect of us as who we are. It's an aspect of our soul, and it's not so much of how do I develop my clairs, how do I develop my clairvoyance or my clairsentience. It's about how do I touch and awaken that aspect of my soul so that part of me can come to life and rise. That's what we're doing. We're allowing the soul to rise and do what the soul came here to do. That's what we're doing.
I love that.
And if we just focus in on developing the soul and the aspects of our soul and allowing our soul to rise, everything else falls into place. The trust, the surrender, all your clairs, everything just falls into place. So it's a soul thing. It's not a mediumship thing. It's a soul thing. That would be.
That's great.
My advice.
That's a great description. It's like develop your soul and mediumship will follow.
Yes.
That's great. I love that. That's a wonderful description. That's great. One of the things I am so fascinated about as well is your background as a person who holds education. I think you've got a master's in education or something, and you've been teaching everyone from kindergarten through adults or something.
Right.
So it sounds like you've got this passion for teaching, and you're still
I do.
teaching. You're teaching for mediumship. You're teaching for all kinds of things. What's your background in teaching been? Where'd that come from?
I stumbled across it.
Just like everything else.
Things just fall in my lap. My mother I had come from a long line of teachers. I have uncles who were professors at A&M. My mother was just a long line of teachers in my family, and I swore up and down that I would never ever be a teacher. Nope, not me. It's a lot of work. And I saw how hard my mother had to work as a teacher. And I said, never, no, I'm not going to do that. And so I was going to go into some form of psychology of some sort. Volunteered at a home for runaway youths. They put me in the teaching program, and I changed my degree.
Okay.
I got bitten by that teaching bug.
I was going to say, it sounds like they got you.
Yeah, so I switched my of course my mother's smiling from the inside. Going, mm-hmm.
I told you.
yeah, but I loved it, and I have taught from kindergarten all the way through adults, and I just love teaching. It is a passion of mine. But then once I started with my mediumship training, I learned very quickly that my passion for mediumship mirrored my passion for teaching. And I thought to myself, wouldn't it be wonderful if I could do both? And so that's why I wrote the book. Part of why I wrote that book is because I just, at that time, felt there was that need to dig a little bit deeper to teach people, because all of the books that I had read gave you an overview but didn't get into the nitty-gritty. Okay, that's great. Yes, I can do that, but now what?
Right.
Now what do I do? And you can take a teacher out of the classroom, but you can't take the teacher out of that teacher. And so when I was going to the Arthur Findlay College, my mind was always rolling and thinking, how would I teach this? How would I, so that's how it all.
Oh, great.
You can't stop it.
Yeah. I seem to remember a portion or some section in your book, you were talking about the gold nugget. There was either the gold nugget or something about the iceberg, go down all the way down to the iceberg. I was like, that was one of the things I can remember being a big takeaway for me when I first read that years ago. I was like, wow, that is so perfect. I get it.
Yeah. And the thing is the gold nugget could be really simple.
You're right.
It could be so simple. It doesn't have to be anything earth-shattering, but it's whatever it's that piece of evidence that touches the soul of your recipient.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
I remember once I had a colleague. We were in Mavis's mentorship together, and she was just like me. She didn't think that this was, how am I ever going to get there kind of thing. And she gave me a reading, and she mentioned my granddad's rocking chair. And I grew up in the military, guys. I don't cry in front of anybody. I was raised to be tough. And I felt this tear welling up in my eye, and I thought, oh my God, she's mentioning the rocking chair. And she had no idea. She thought it was just a rocking chair.
Right.
And then afterwards I said, no, you don't understand the meaning behind that rocking chair. You know, that's where my granddad and I would rock, and I'd sit in his lap, and that's where we bonded. And I said, that rocking chair is everything to me, and it's falling apart, but I still have it.
Oh, wow.
I still have it. Nobody can have that rocking chair. And she goes, really? It was just an old rocking chair? And I said, yeah, full of many wonderful memories. I said,
Right.
You made me cry. Nobody makes me cry.
Right. It's all about the shared memories, just those shared memories that are the visceral connection.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what she pulled in. She pulled that gold nugget, was that shared memory.
She pulled that gold nugget out. I mean, I've got a couple of them with my granddad. There's 3, actually. She touched on the one.
Yeah, and
And I
that
was like,
really
there
goes.
you go.
Yep, and that goes to the how critical it is that as people are developing, they've got to learn that no matter how insignificant it is for the reader, the person who's giving the message, they may have no clue what it means. Like the woman did in your case, they're like, "Well, I don't know what this means. I'm just going to give it anyway." But you've got to always give whatever it is that you get, no matter how. You can't filter it out. That's the one thing I always learned when very early on, because I was like, "Oh, this doesn't sound right. This can't be right." So I'm going to filter it out. I'm not going to say it. And later on, I learned, "Oops, that was really important."
Yeah.
Imagine if they hadn't given you the rocking chair. The reading would have been so different.
It would have, well, she was getting good evidence that everything she was getting was good, but she touched my soul.
Right, that's the difference.
And that's what we want to try to do that every time if we can. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's the gold nugget, when you've touched their soul.
Yeah, when you really bring it into their heart, because it's through the heart. Spirit communicates through the heart to the heart.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the great things.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm also so interested in is, not only do you have your teaching, your mediumship, your book, and what have you, but you're a psychic investigator, which I find so fascinating. How is it that you work with as a psychic investigator? I mean, I know, for example, Tony Stockwell is a psychic investigator. There are other psychic investigators. How do you do it? What do you do as a psychic investigator?
Really, it's the same. You're working in the same kinds of way. You use psychic a lot, but you can also use your mediumistic abilities, especially if you're working like a murder case or a missing person who has crossed over already. You can do that as well, but it's really about being just another way for family members or the police to gather information. So my number one goal is not to solve the case, although I want to solve the case. Obviously, right. I want to solve the case. But if I can just, dig a little bit deeper and find something that the family hasn't come across or the police haven't found yet that can lead them to where they need to be, I think I've done a good job there. If I can just say, have you looked on this road? I keep seeing a road and I see the, part of the name of the road, or whatever that may be, that can lead them there, because I work from my home and I could be working on a case in another country somewhere. Mm-hmm. So it's not like I can go there, but if I can see it in my mind or draw it on a sketch and give it to them and just say, can you check this place out? Can you go here?
Right.
So it's just helping them to find clues, if anything.
So it sounds like there's a lot of remote viewing that you're working with, your own ability to psychically sense an image or a scene or something, whether it's
Yeah.
given psychically or given from a loved one who's already crossed over. You're getting that
Yeah.
information and relaying that evidence to as best you can.
Yeah, doing psychic art as well. You can draw images of who could have done this, or so you bring in, you can use so many things. You can use psychic art. You can use your psychometry. Psychometrize a photo or an item, a garment, if it's local. You can even use tarot cards. You can dowsing rods, you name it. You can use all of those tools that we have available to help us. But I prefer to work in teams and not work by myself, because if you're working with teams, it's very interesting, because I might get something, or get these pieces of information, and somebody else gets this, and somebody else gets this, and we all have our strengths of how we can work, and we use our strengths. But then when we come together, we're able to put the puzzle pieces together to form something that makes sense. And I love it. It's mind-boggling, but it all kind of comes together, and you start seeing the patterns, and you're like, oh my gosh, this we could be onto something. Yeah.
So it's great. It sounds like you've got a team collaborating together
Yes.
to get all this evidence, to get all this information, and the more
Right.
people that are involved, the better, because everybody's got their strengths and they're working
Right.
from that aspect.
Yeah,
Everybody's a little different.
and we all kind of work separately, but then when we come together, we see how our evidence overlaps, and we can see how oh, you got that, I got that too. Yeah, I got that. We all got this part, so we know that there's something there because we all got it. But then we may have pieces of evidence that nobody else got. But then as we start putting it all together, we see how, it fits here, and that one fits here. And if we put those two together, it becomes very powerful. So, it's amazing. And
Yeah.
the newest thing that I say this lightly, I'm attempting to learn is forensic astrology, which is just amazing. So in my little group, there's a couple, there's two people that know it well, and so they're trying to help us all learn it. But that saying that it's written in the stars,
Right.
it's very true. And if you have a timestamp and a date of the last time somebody was seen or heard from, and you have the exact time that it happened, and that could be a 911 call, it could be the last time they were seen or heard from, or could be the time of the murder. But you have a timestamp and a date and a location. You plug that in to astrology as if it were like a birth date. And you look at the planets and the stars to see where did they align at that specific time. And you can literally track where the perpetrator is, and the subject, the person that's missing, or the person that was murdered. You can literally track them.
Wow.
And you can see what exactly is happening. What vehicle are they in? What color is the vehicle? And it can confirm. What I like to do is use forensic astrology to confirm the psychic evidence that we've already gathered.
Wow.
And then you go to the astrology chart and you can confirm it
That's amazing.
and gain even more information. It's amazing.
I've never heard of forensic astrology. That sounds absolutely amazing.
It is amazing.
Yeah,
It blows my mind.
yeah. I mean, I would, my skeptical mind would say, well, how is that even possible? I mean, these are just a bunch of stars.
And planets.
Yeah, stars and planets, and they're all moving in their own separate ways. So how could they have anything to do with saying, okay, well, the suspect has got a blue Mustang, and they're last seen in here and doing whatever? How can that happen?
And this revolves around money, or, they were abducted for, sexual assault or whatever it may be. But depending on where those planets and stars line up, in what houses they are in, and what they're aspecting and squaring, that's when the story starts to unfold.
That's amazing.
But it can get very specific. Where's the body? What did they do to the body? How did the person die? All of that.
Wow. That's
It's all
amazing.
right there.
It's all right there. And I guess it's like they say, it's written in the charts.
Yeah. It's written in the stars. Absolutely.
Wow. Well, what has your all of your experiences from the time you were very little to all of your experience to date? What has this taught you about the continuity of life?
We don't die.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We don't die, really. Our soul, our spirit within continues on. And we're just, the only difference between us and those that are in the spirit world is that we just have this flesh and bones all around us, and they don't.
Right.
They don't. And we were spirit before we entered into the body. And so if we were spirit before we came into the body, and we're spirit when we leave, we continue.
Mm-hmm. And we're still spirit even here.
Right.
One spirit, always spirit. It's like you said,
always
can't
spirit.
take the spirit out of the person.
And always connected,
Yes.
always connected. And the thing for me is like one of my big aha moments that I had with my guide was like, he showed himself to me in the way that he was, but he also showed me as a light being. I was able to experience myself in that way as a spirit being. And I put two and two together. I was like, oh my God, I'm just like him. And I've always said we're just spirit in a body. I've always said that. But I never experienced it in that way. And it really made me stop and realize that I am spirit. And I came from the spirit world, so if I'm spirit, all I have to do is awaken that aspect of me, and I'll be able to continue to communicate with spirit in the way that I communicated with them before I entered into this body.
Wow. So true. So
So
true.
it's just a matter of, and when I say it's about our soul's development, it's just about awakening that aspect of our soul that remembers what it's like to be spirit.
Remembers, exactly. That's so critical.
That's all we're doing.
That's
So
what the
it
awakening
really,
is. You're reawakening your spirit.
Absolutely. So it truly is about the soul's journey.
That's
Absolutely.
so perfect, so well put. What about you? You mentioned your spirit guide. I'm always getting the question, how can I connect with my spirit guide? How can I learn about my spirit guide? Why isn't my spirit guide talking to me? I can't hear them. What would you say to those questions that keep coming up?
Oh, gosh. Well, for me, it started when I was playing with my Barbie doll.
There you go. That was you.
Go buy a Barbie. I
Yeah,
don't
right. Go buy a Barbie. Go pray to your Barbie doll.
right. Yeah, I don't know. I'm, for lack of not knowing anything better, I learned how to meditate. Somebody said, you need to meet your guide. Well, how do I do that? Meditate. Well, how do I do that? Google it. So I did. And I started meditating with this intention of my guide coming forward. And he didn't come forward for a while. My dad came, my granddad came, everybody came, but my guide didn't. But one day, eventually, my dad came and he brought my guide.
Oh.
And when there's this thing about me locking eyes with people, but when I locked eyes with him, I knew immediately he was the same person I saw when I was 5. He didn't look the same. So the guy that I saw when I was 5 was young, like a young man, maybe teenager, but
Okay.
20s. He was young. But when my dad brought my guide, he was an older man. But I knew from the eyes it was the same person.
All right.
And so that's how I met him. But look, some people go through this and they never meet their guide. You just have to trust that your guide is there with you. We all have one. Everybody, even if you're not a medium. We all have a guardian, we may call them a guardian angel, but we all have at least one that's with us from the time we're born until we leave this world. So just trust that they're there. Talk to them because they're communicating with you, whether you realize it or not. Sit in the power, sit in meditation. When the time is right for you, your guide will present themselves.
Yes, that's
when the
that's
time is right.
So true. Yeah, it's like when it's like when it's the saying, what is it? When the student is ready, the teacher will come.
Absolutely. And along that same line, I sat with my guide for a year before he ever spoke to me in a meaningful way. He wouldn't speak to me. He'd just sit with me.
Wow.
When I'd sit in meditation, he'd just sit there and I'd try to converse with him, and he wouldn't. He just wouldn't. And the only thing he ever said to me was trust. He goes, just trust. And so it was about a year when he finally came and became and started being my teacher. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. He showed himself to let me know he was there. But I wasn't ready to learn. I had to sit with him for a whole year before he started teaching me.
Wow. And what was it like when he finally started teaching you?
Pardon?
What was it like when he finally started to teach you and he actually started to talk to you and give you all this great wisdom?
It was an amazing experience. I actually wrote about it. It was on that course, the first course I ever took with Tony Stockwell in Wales, and I was selected to do inspirational talk to all of the groups that night. So there's no preparation. You have to just go with allow the soul to rise and speak from the soul. And I had gotten up that morning and was going to go for a walk. There was this beautiful, where we were at, we were on a lot of land. And there was a castle. And anyway, I started walking and he just showed up. And he was walking with me. He does that a lot. We walk together a lot. And he showed up. And I said to him, I have to give an inspirational speech tonight. And he says, I know. And I said, I don't know what to talk about. And he says, it will come. And it was about 20 minutes to get to where I wanted to go on my walk. And there was this beautiful oak tree that was probably 400 or 500 years old. It was so huge. And I walked up to that tree and I heard him say, "Go up and put your hand on that tree." And I put my hand on the tree. And he just started giving me direction of what to do with this tree. And he says, "I want you to move yourself into that tree, become the tree." And I did. And the tree, it was just this beautiful experience. And when it was all finished, I knew exactly what I was supposed to talk about.
Wow.
But he's the one that led me, because I had a coffee cup in my hand. And I asked him, I said, "I still really don't understand what I'm going to talk about." And he says, "Look at your hand." And I looked at my hand and had the coffee cup. He goes, "What do you have?" And I said, "I have a cup." And he goes, "You're going to start with a cup."
Huh.
And that's what I did. I started with a cup. And this beautiful message came from a coffee cup.
Wow. A simple coffee cup.
And I made somebody cry.
Oh, no. Wow.
Because it touched her soul.
Oh, my God. There it is. Touching
So,
the soul again.
Yeah. But that's what my guide does. He doesn't give me verbatim, do this, do this, do this. He leads me there, and he lets me, because he said, you start with a cup, and then the rest will follow.
Oh, yeah. Fill the cup.
What do you say? How do you do inspiration with a cup? I had to trust.
Yeah, trust that he was going to fill the cup for you and you were going to drink from it.
Yeah, but, well, the soul. It all came from the soul.
Wow,
so
that's great.
the wisdom of the soul is...
That's fantastic. That's
it's
phenomenal.
all there. It's all within the soul.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is amazing. Yeah. What would you, Kay, what would you say would be the single most important recommendation that perhaps you might give to a person who's listening to the show today?
Who's, for anybody or somebody on this path?
Anybody.
For anybody. I would, oh gosh, if I'm going with anybody, trust your soul. Listen to the whispers of your heart, because it's those little whispers in our head that we hear is the wisdom of your soul. It's always going to be positive. It's always going to be for your highest good. If it's negative, that's ego. So listen to the whispers of the soul and trust that, because your soul knows far more than our physical mind will ever know. And if we just listen to those whispers, I think we'll be all right.
So well put. So beautiful. Wow, that's great. Well, Kay, thank you so much for being on the show. This was absolutely fabulous. I thank you so much. How can people get in touch with you and learn more about you?
Well, I have a website. It's kayreynolds.org. You can reach me through there. I'm on Facebook. I have a YouTube channel where I do little tutorials and that sort of thing. I have a Facebook group called Medium's Corner, Evidential Mediumship. Just places to start. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. I don't do a lot with social media because, I'm trying to
They're
learn.
trying. There you go.
I'm trying to learn. But, yeah. Start there.
Start there.
That's
a lot to go with. That's a great beginning. Any plans in the future? Anything in the works? Anything that's coming out?
As far as teaching classes and that sort of thing, that's all on my website. I have a 5-month mentorship starting in August. I don't know which classes I've got going. I think I have another one starting up. I'm off I'm not teaching anything in June and July. Those are my downtime there. But I do a Q&A that's free every Tuesday. I'm going to continue doing that on my downtime.
Great.
And that's on Tuesdays. Anybody can come. You can ask any questions you like. You don't have to be a medium. If you have questions about the afterlife and the spirit world or mediumship in general, come. Ask your question.
Oh, that sounds great. Because I know a lot of people would love to do that. Just, I've got all these questions.
We all do, don't we? Like a million.
Exactly.
Like a million. So that's what that's for, to answer those questions that you just wish you had somebody, and I might not be able to answer all of them, but I'll do my best. And if I can't answer it, I'm just very honest and say I don't have an answer for you.
Or you'll just contact your spirit guide and say, 1 second, please. What's the answer?
I do that as well.
Okay.
I do. Absolutely. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and I don't have a cup, but is there something else?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, Kay, this is absolutely fantastic, and I thank you again for being on the show and sharing your time with us. This is wonderful. So thank you for that.
Happy to do it. Thank you so much for the invitation. I enjoyed it.
Well, my pleasure. And for everybody who's on the episode today, thank you for listening and listening to another episode of Spirits Beside Us. And you can get all the show notes on the website, www.spiritsbesideus.com. All the show notes will be there. All the links to Kay's sites will be there. And we're going to continue to have more of these sessions coming up. So stay tuned next Wednesday. And until then, this is Chris signing off and sending you love and light. Until next time. Bye for now. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Spirits Beside Us. Make sure you head over to the show notes for all the links and information on this week's episode. You can check it out at spiritsbesideus.com. If you love this episode as much as I did, head over to rate and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're looking for a community of spiritual seekers like yourself, make sure you join my Facebook page, Spirits Beside Us Podcast on Facebook. This is Chris signing off, sending you love and light. I can't wait to connect with you again on Wednesday.